After my Easter sermon a few weeks ago, I got an email from a man in Fort Worth who had listened in on WRR the week following. That's the way our radio program works. He challenged me a bit about the way I was dismissive of people who go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre or the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem, where Jesus is said to have been buried. And I had too blithely, he said, suggested that spirituality doesn't align well with that kind of pilgrimage behavior, that it didn't sync up with what the angel told the disciples, well, the women at the tomb, and then they were supposed to tell the disciples that he is not here, he is there. And this man perceptively said, isn't that a little bit like Lucy, who is constantly withdrawing the football when Charlie Brown goes to kick it, time after time? It looks like it's here, but it's never really there. His point was that people need to see and experience Jesus in his risen state here with us, in some bodily, tangible way. Being in those holy places, he suggested, gives people a sense of that. All right, so I admitted that I may have overdone it in making my point. Preachers sometimes exaggerate, don't you know? Maybe it was the tone, probably that mostly. I didn't intend to suggest that we should now only experience Christ in a spiritual way in our hearts. I do stand by my interpretation of what the angel said, but I admit that it could lead people to suggest, to think that genuine spirituality is really only a feeling, that it's just a mental construct and not a bodily experience in everyday life. And we see in this text that Jesus did understand just how important that is, too. But it seems that even seeing Jesus' hands and feet wasn't proof of life enough. They needed something more. So Jesus asks them if they have anything to eat. And they give him a piece of broiled fish, and he takes it and eats it in their presence, indicating that our Savior, in his risen state, had some of the same characteristics of bodily human life that he had before his death and resurrection. Even, we guess, a digestive tract. This teaches us something we want to know about what happens when we die. People talk about life after death as if that's all we should expect. Whatever happens the moment after we die. That ends up, we think, to be our permanent eternal state. But while they had already seen how Jesus was different, in that he could enter a room through locked doors, as he did in the Thomas story, or that he was able to move around quickly, appearing and disappearing, as in the story here in Luke that preceded this one of his being with the men on the Emmaus Road. This shows that the risen Christ has a resurrected body that is at home here on earth as well as in heaven. So we talk about going to heaven when we die, but this story shows us that there's something more to expect than life after death in heaven. As the New Testament scholar N.T. Wright puts it, this is about life after death. What was already true for Jesus will one day be true for all of us, and that is that we will experience a new creation. We will be ourselves just as he said to his disciples, "It is I myself." But we will have a resurrection body that is at home in the new heaven and the new earth that is to come. We have all experienced life in a weird in-between state for more than a year now during COVID-19. We've had virtual church. We're doing it right now, right? Watching on TV or on computer screen. And we have missed being together in the flesh here at church. And some have wondered over time, well, does church really require that? Maybe the spiritual nature of the church that we're experiencing now is just practice for heaven. We have to get used to being present without touch, without hugs, without eating together in each other's presence. But something real is missing in all of that, and I think we know it and feel it. We feel the absence that Zoom or FaceTime or voice calls just can't satisfy. We sense the anxiety that comes from bodily separation. Some people haven't slept well in this past year, and some wonder if they will even live long enough to see their loved ones in the flesh again. The promise packed in this story of the risen Christ eating fish with his disciples is that whatever differences there are in life after death, there is life after death to come. And God plans for us to know one another in a bodily way and to enjoy each other's presence in a new creation. And this story anticipates that.